It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of September 8th, 1995. We got 5 movies to look at today, so let's just jump on into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Patrick Swayze, Wesley Snipes, and John Leguizamo in the comedy To Wong Foo, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Notable significance of this movie is that this is actually the first real Hollywood movie to depict drag queens, and some people may go back to something like Some Like It Hot, Tootsie, or Mrs. Doubtfire, but those movies are very different compared to this one. There's no backstory of why these guys are doing this that's related to something that completely different from what they normally would have done, but this is something that these people in this movie do for a living. And essentially what this movie is a remake of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which we've already talked about in a previous episode from the year before. It was a big cult hit. And of course, why not remake it and have Steven Spielberg be one of the producers behind it? And you know what? It's a pretty damn good movie. I mean, really what makes the film work is that pairing of Wesley Snipes, Patrick Swayze, and John Leguizamo as these drag queens. You can just look at this movie and see how much fun they're having with this movie, and it shows on screen. It's amazing that these guys are just having the time of their lives playing these characters, and it's definitely showing in here. Like, honestly, this is probably my favorite Patrick Swayze movie. I mean, I like him in Ghost, but this is the one where he looks like he's having the time of his life, and he's really funny in this movie. And so is everybody. So is the other three guys, the other two guys, I should say, Wesley Snipes and John Leguizamo. Like I said, they are just having the time of their life playing these characters, and the movie just works on so many levels. To think this was actually the movie that propelled Leguizamo into the film career that he has now, seeing as how Super Mario Brothers was supposed to do that 2 years prior. But as far as the story goes, it's a fish out of water storyline. It's not the worst, but it's very predictable. But at the same time, it's nothing too harmless. There are a ton of laughs all around. There's a lot of solidly funny moments in this, and it's just good fun. It's a fun, enjoyable comedy with its heart in the right place. 3 great leading performances to carry it all the way through, and a lot of funny moments to pull it through. It's definitely something very fun and enjoyable to watch. Take it for what it is, and you'll have the time of your life with it. It's a really funny movie. I really enjoyed it a lot. To Wong Foo, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Just really funny movie. So, with that said, let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is The Tie That Binds. Yet another one of those movies that looks like it could have been so easily been the Lifetime Movie of the Week or the Movie of the Week on NBC or any of the CBS, ABC, any of the major networks, because really, is there anything about this movie that's really considered needed to be seen on a big screen? I mean, yeah, you got Daryl Hannah, you got Keith Carradine, you got Maura Kelly from The Lion King in here. It's written and directed by Wesley Strick, who also wrote Arachnophobia, Batman Returns, and Cape Fear. But really, is there anything about this movie that looks like it needs to be feature length? I mean, unfortunately haven't seen the movie, so I can't really say too much about it, but judging by the reviews I see for it, it's not looking that positive. It only got 8% freshness on Rotten Tomatoes, and that is not so good. And the trailer kind of gives away everything that's going to happen in this movie. I mean, these characters are not that smart. Not even the kids' real parents, the kids' adopted parents. Nobody in this movie is really smart whatsoever. And it's just like, where's the fun factor in this? Why am I supposed to get enjoyment out of this? Like, there's nothing about this that looks interesting or anything unique whatsoever. It looks like a watered down version of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and even then that movie wasn't that great. So yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't really say too much about it, but I'm highly doubting it's anything more than that trailer is showing. So let's move on to the next movie, shall we? And that is Tom Berenger, Toy Bones, Tom Berenger and Barbara Hershey in The Last of the Dogmen. So interestingly enough, this is actually the first film directed by Tab Murphy, which is a name you might not be too familiar with, but you've definitely seen his work. Before this, he did Gorillas in the Mist. He wrote the story for that, but most notably, he worked on the story for several Disney movies, including The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tarzan, Atlantis: The Lost Empire. He wrote Brother Bear. He wrote for Superman, Batman Apocalypse, Batman Year One. He's written for the TV series Thundercats, Teen Titans Go. He wrote a Scooby-Doo movie. He wrote the infamous Bobbleheads movie. I mean, this is a guy that is mostly associated with animation overall, but this is the last live action film I think of note that he was involved with, and I unfortunately have not seen it, so I can't really say too much about it. But I've seen worse. I mean, it definitely doesn't look like anything really spectacular or anything, but it definitely doesn't look as bad as some of the other movies that have been similar to this, that kind of try to be a knockoff version of something like Last of the Mohicans or something like that. But I mean, it could be something interesting. You got Wilford Brimley as the narrator in this. You have Kurtwood Smith also in the film. I'm trying to see who else is in here. Yeah, that's a couple of the other that's the only other notable names I see here. But like I said, it doesn't look like it's a bad movie per se. It just doesn't look like a memorable film. Honestly, it's like it might be good for a one-time watch, but honestly, I don't really feel the need to go see this at any point. So that's Last of the Dogmen. Let's move on to the next movie, and that is National Lampoon's Senior Trip. So the director of this, Kelly Make-It, is actually more associated with a comedy group of Kids in the Hall, and that's why you see Kevin McDonald in there. But it's interesting. You have Kids in the Hall mixing in with National Lampoon, trying to create essentially a '90s equivalent to Animal House, and needless to say, I don't think they were that successful by it. I mean, I see on here it's got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I don't want to say it's a terrible movie, but it certainly is not up there on that level of Animal House or some of the best National Lampoon movies. But there were moments in here that I did chuckle at, and it's interesting to see some of the early film works of people like Jeremy Renner. This is actually the first film that he ever started. Like I said, Kevin McDonald, Matt Frewer, Tommy Chung is in this. Most notably, some of you may not notice, but if you know who this person is in real life, you may have recognized her, but you may recognize her voice. Tara Strong, the voice of Twilight Sparkle, Timmy Turner, a bunch of notable characters in animation is in this movie, and you also have Danny Smith. Is a couple of notable names in here, but as far as I know, as far as I remember, the movie itself was nothing too special. I saw this a long time ago, and that trailer really did not do anything spectacular for me. It was just kind of like, hey, let's make Speed references, because Speed had just come out at that time, and that was a big hit. And then, hey, fart jokes and all that kind of stuff. It's that kind of humor where sometimes it can work, other times it really doesn't, and a good majority of the jokes in here are not really all that strong. But at the same time, I've seen much worse comedies like this. I mean, there are moments in here that I do think are funny. I certainly don't think it's worthy of a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, it's just like, I won't go that far. I mean, it's just not really all that engaging. It's not really all that funny, and there's no real point to this by the end of the movie. Like, there's no real what's the main focus I'm supposed to take from this by the end of the film, and the movie doesn't really have a good idea of it. It's just like, let's just go gonzo crazy, and hopefully we'll get some good laughs out of it. And sometimes it works, but most times not so much. So that's my thoughts on National Lampoon's Senior Trip. So let's move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Nico Icon. And obviously, it's not a good sign when I can't find anything on Wikipedia about this movie, so I have to go to Google to do it. Nico Icon basically follows the German model, singer, and actress Nico, who is most renowned with her associations with Andy Warhol and the Velvet Underground. She gained attention for her icy, Teutonic looks and later her unusual voice, but was plagued with depression and drug addiction. And the performer is presented in film clips and photos. And the film also features interviews with associates such as singer-songwriter Jackson Browne and musical collaborator John Cale. And that's really all I know about this film. I don't really know too much about the film itself because I haven't seen it, but could be an interesting story. It has some good reviews for it, and it is very interesting to hear more about this time period, especially when you have people like Velvet Underground and Andy Warhol involved in here. So there is definitely something here that could be very interesting to talk about with this, but I'm not going to rush out to see it right now. But it's definitely one that has my curiosity on it, but like I said, it's not something I'm going to rush out to see anytime soon, but it is notable for a number of reasons, so I definitely want to check it out at some point. So, yeah, so that's Nico Icon. So with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll have 7 new movies to look at, including Spike Lee's Clockers. We also have Hackers, and also the cult teen comedy Angus, also Mute Witness. Unstrung Heroes, The Stars Fall on Henrietta, and Cold Blooded. So 7 movies to look at next time around, and we'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.